looks like he's coming our way. Hopefully we can scare him away.
Back again. Back again. That kind of makes me giggle every single time I say that, because I know there's a handful of people out there that just can't stand that I keep doing this. So it makes me laugh. It's like, I'm back. Quick note on that. One thing I found that has frustrated me in the past with listening to people talk on various topics, like there is a lot of people out there who give a shit, right? There's a lot of people out there trying to scream the truth from the rooftops via these methods here, you know, YouTube or Rumble or whatever. And I find myself, I get frustrated. I have been frustrated at times thinking, you know what, I'm sick and tired of this talk. Everybody's just talking. Nobody's coming up with any frickin' remedies. I've said that here in the past. But then again, I had to reel myself in and really think about it and realize that actually talking does make a huge difference, right? If it didn't, then the governments wouldn't own and fund mainstream news. So, just to let you guys know, I get frustrated too. But I've reeled myself in a few times and realized it does make a difference. And if you stop talking, guess who wins, right? So, the show must go on at all costs. Every single person must be heard. It's one thing this channel has proven is when you give the people their voice, it's such huge power, man. It's such a huge, powerful wave. Very, very powerful. That's why the government owns mainstream news, because they harness the voice and take the voice away from the people, and they only give the voice to select few who speak what they want them to speak about, nothing else. Anyway, there you go. So, the more people talk, the difference, the bigger the difference it makes. And you can see the difference when if you observe various polls that people do when it comes to various topics. And the polls are swinging in the favor of the people across the board with a lot of different topics. So the point I'm trying to get across is that I'm a little bit of a babbler right now. I'm not quite awake. My second coffee here with little Mrs. Christmas's. There's only Christmas coffee mugs available for this time of year in the house. Everywhere I turn around, there's a new little Christmas decoration. It's kind of fun to watch. I've never seen somebody so enthusiastic and happy about this time of year. And finally got all the lights done around the yard last night in the dark. And it was fun to see how excited everybody was for that. And me feeling like I'm not excited enough, whatever. As long as everybody's happy, right? And I didn't break a leg on the roof of the wet sheet metal roof getting stuff on there. It was a bit of a babble too, wasn't it? So we're going to get right into hearing voices. What else? I have so many frickin' emails. And just so you guys know, I noticed a quick glance. That's all I could do this morning, a quick glance. And I noticed that a fair amount of people have replied to my request for help with my app platforms, which is huge for me. And I will get to it. And what I probably do is my original techie, she's in Central America right now, quit her job here, and what she's doing, she's gone on tour. I love hearing that. I love hearing when people quit their jobs and go for it. It's a pretty terrifying thing for most people to do. And last word from her was the Wi-Fi she had at the time was real shitty, so she couldn't go into my apps and do what needed to be done quite just yet, but she's going to. And she speaks the language, the tech language, which I don't. I don't even have a clue how to smoothly crack open access to the platforms to somebody's I don't even know online. How do you do it? She does. Okay? So what I will probably do is I will be sending her every single one of the emails. I trust her with my life. She's a great individual. I'll send her the emails from all of the people who are applying. And because she will speak your language. You guys speak the same language. And and we'll go about it that way. Okay, you guys? I won't even know what questions to ask to make sure the person or persons I select for jumping in, I don't even know the questions to ask. All right, I'll admit it. Me and Tech World, come on, think about it. I'm a bush boy. So she'll, I'm gonna put every single email that comes in, I'm gonna put to her, forward to her, and she will know what to do, what to say, what to ask, and select the best person or persons for the task at hand. All right, and I'm excited. I'm totally stoked. It's rejuvenated my enthusiasm. Now, and for all you who might be a little confused right now, what I did was a handful of years ago, after I quit and left one of the biggest names in, what do you call it, commercial hunting, I'll call it, promoted hunting, at the dock in the Yukon, for being the uber opposite of what they portray themselves on TV. I left there wondering, how the hell do I get the knowledge to the people without all this lying BS and selling bullshit? And that's what motivated me to go on the ride that I went on. And eventually come up with a custom app platform that nobody had done yet, that functions without the internet, that delivers true knowledge to people to help them without any lying or misleading or bullshit or egomania or follow me and worship me bullshit. That's what I did, okay? Without knowing anything about tech. Can you imagine what that ride was like? But anyway, getting back to the people here. Let's hear from the people, shall we? This is titled Greetings from England. Hi, Steve. My name is Mike, and you can use my name. I'm 70 years old, retired from 24 years in law enforcement, and prior to that, 25 years in the British Army. Wow. My wife and I have been watching your channel for a few months now, and I believe it is one of the better ones about Bigfoot. Well done. Appreciate the kind words, sir. Be interesting to find out how you found the channel in England, and what, because we don't promote this channel. How do you do that? Anyway, sorry. Prior to this, I was aware of the subject, but I had no opinions either way. Earlier this year, my wife and I started to watch YouTube. Whilst watching a particular UK Bigfoot channel about sightings around the UK, a distant memory came into my head, and I said loudly, "Bloody hell." I then recalled an event that happened to me. In late '77, I was in the British Army stationed in Shrewsbury, Shropshire, 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 which is in the West Midlands of the UK. It was nearly Christmas, so I decided to visit my parents who live in the northeast of England. Prior to my leaving that Friday afternoon, my sergeant asked if I could give him, his wife, and 2 children a lift to Hull, which is en route. The car had broken down that morning. We set off in my Morris Marina TC, and the route was north of the M6, then east on the M62. I'm guessing that's a European car. As we traveled on the M62, a piece of metal debris sliced off the bottom of my engine sump. That'll be the oil pan in North America. I came to a halt on the hard shoulder of the motorway. We all got out and got behind the crash barrier. This was before the invention of the mobile phone. So I walked to the emergency phone about a half a mile up the road. As I walked, several other vehicles had hit this debris and were coming to a halt. I rang the Royal Automobile Club, RAC, for recovery, and the police. When I returned, quite a few damaged vehicles were lined up on the hard shoulder. Police arrived and cleared the debris, and shortly afterwards, a RAC recovery Land Rover arrived. All around were shouting for help, but the RAC man shouted my name. Lucky me, I thought. I was then towed off the M6 motorway at the next exit and stopped at a lay-by. He then explained that he was going to take my passengers to a railway station for their onward journey to Hull and return for me. He said, "Don't leave the vehicle." The lay-by I was dumped at was high up on the moors and some distance from the motorway junction. I have searched on Street View, and I believe it was the A672 junction, which is north of Oldham. I could see no other buildings, just rolling moors and a few trees. It is the highest point in the motorway. Okay, so rolling moors and a few trees. So my question might have been answered what a moor is. I guess that's probably rolling hills. When they left, it started to snow. I could not start my engine as there was no oil left in the engine. Luckily, I had my army combat jacket and trousers, gloves, boots, woolly hat, and a small camping stove with 2 gas canisters in the boot of the car. The boot, I know, is the trunk of the car. See, I'm translating North American. I sat in the car with the stove alight between my legs, and the snow kept falling. Hopefully with the windows open. Hours passed, and I must have fallen asleep. I was woken up with a bang on the window. It was freezing. The stove had gone out, and inside of the car windows the stove had gone out, and the inside of the car windows and my glasses were frosted up. Lucky you, you're awake for that after having a stove inside a car. I scraped the window, and with my glasses off, I squinted and saw what I can only describe was a very big black man in a fur coat. I could see no other features. He waved and walked away. I quickly changed my gas canister and warmed up. At around midnight, some 2 or 3 hours later, the snow had stopped falling. A police vehicle turned up, and a policeman shouted out of his window with the words, "What was I up to?" I told him I was left there by the RAC recovery, and they had not returned. They radioed their control, and after a few minutes told me the RAC had been looking for me and thought I had got help elsewhere. I asked them if they had seen a big black man in a fur coat walking about. They looked at each other, laughed, and said they had not. I eventually got recovered. I have over the years retold this story about the night the RAC nearly killed me through their negligence, and I had forgotten about the strange big black man in a fur coat. I had never made the possible connection between the big black man in a fur coat and a Bigfoot. Now I wonder if he was worried about my safety, and he may have saved my life. I have since then remembered another strange incident. I live in a small village in Kent, England called Lyminge. And then bracket, try to pronounce that correctly on bracket. Lyminge. Lyminge? Lyminge. I used to frequent a pub in the next village, and the route to and from it was across a golf course. The distance was about a mile. One evening around midnight, after enjoying a few pints, I left this pub to walk home. A friend decided to leave with me. As we walked in the dark and approached the clubhouse, we disturbed a large person in dark clothes rummaging around the rubbish bins. This person quickly moved into the shadows and disappeared. There's no noise. My friend is 6 foot plus and heavily built, was terrified, and he quickly walked off homeward bound. I caught up with him, but he was in a state and refused to say why and has never mentioned this incident again. I felt no fear about this encounter, and now thinking about it, I had a very calming feeling about it, and it was not because of the beers. I've been a volunteer footpath warden in my surrounding area, and I have noticed quite a few teepee-type structures in the woods. I always thought they'd been built by kids. Now I wonder, perhaps not. Well, Steve, that's my encounters. What could be interactions? But I could be wrong. Keep up the great work. Regards, Mike. Okay, Mike? I think, I always say it. We already know. You already know what you saw. You already know what you know. It's our guts know. Our intuition, our inner beings know. And furthermore, I believe, especially with you, from your past history, your career, I don't think you need any attention, and I don't think you are a uber amped up Bigfooter. So what I'm saying is, if you're compelled to write that in and share that with us, I'm pretty sure you already know what it was, right? And it's interesting to hear the reaction of your friend and you, how it was so different when you saw this person rummaging about, right? I mean, we've all seen people, unfortunate souls, rummaging about. And not one of us have ever felt terrified and felt the need to find this email address and send in the sighting of a person rummaging about on YouTube to a YouTube channel, right? Anyway, before I get babbling too much, again, appreciate you sending that in. As you know, I guess you've been watching a channel somebody's put together from the UK. They're there. They're all around the world. And that is a fact. That is a fact. All right, what do we got here? This title says this will be a long one. All right, I'm going in. See, it's better when we get the somebody says the long one in the very beginning of the video. It's like, all right, you're in. We're going in. Titled, This Will Be a Long One. Hi, Steve. I wanted to thank you for everything you have done to help all the people. It's too easy. You can use my name. It is Mike Kerwin. And I am from upstate New York. For the last 14 years, I've lived in Costa Rica. I have been going to send this for quite a while now, but I could not think of where to begin. So I'm going back to the beginning. I hope that it all gels together by the end. I was about 3 years old when my two sisters and I were playing in a very small pool in our backyard with my mom. We asked her if we could have popsicles. She said sure. So I jumped out of the pool and made a beeline for the deep freezer that was in the basement. I was all wet from the pool, and as soon as I got to the first step of the painted basement stairs, I went flying all the way down, hitting everything on the way. I ended up at the bottom, hitting my head pretty good on the way down, and also on the concrete floor at the bottom. Oh, that sucks. This is where the strangeness in my life started. I could see myself plain as day, floating around about a foot from the ceiling. I was thinking, wow, I was not breathing. Kind of thought I was dead. Just about then, my mom came busting through the side door and down the stairs. She grabbed me, and now I was watching from my floating body, and I could see her picking me up. I was limp like a rag doll. She kissed me and said something about God, and then she ran up the stairs. By the time we got to the top of the stairs, I was fine. Everyone said that I had just gotten the wind knocked out of me. Then, why, 65 years later, can I still see the whole thing plain as day? From that moment on, I always knew that I was protected by God. At least, that is what my 3-year-old self thought. I've had a few more interesting things, but let's get to my first face-to-face. I was around 19 or 20, and I was camping out with a friend to do some scouting for the upcoming deer season. We've been to this place many times before, no issues. That night, we were hanging out around the campfire, having a couple of beers, making plans for the next day. We both heard some rustling in the bushes, about 50 to 75 feet away. We walked out to the road we were next to see if we could see something cross the road. We were a little bit quiet, but still talking low about what we thought it was. And all of a sudden, something came out of the brush and stopped right in the middle of the road. It was about 4 feet tall and was standing on 2 feet. It looked right at us and then let out this very long and loud howl/scream. We didn't have any good flashlights, but we could see well enough in the moonlight because we were just sitting in the dark with a small campfire. It was covered in hair, not long or short. The color was hard to say, but it was a dark color. It seemed to have chubby cheeks. That may be because of the howl/scream, I don't know. When it was done with the howl/scream, it just stood there and looked straight at us. I can't say that it was trying to intimidate us because I didn't have any feelings of fear, but I think my friend was. Like I said before, I've always felt like I'm protected by God, and I really don't have any fear of anything. We had come in just one truck, and he was not interested in staying, so after I could not talk him into at least waiting for a while to see if he would come back. We ended up leaving a few hours later. I'd seen the Patty film, but this was so small. I was hoping to see it later or tomorrow morning. Maybe look around for some tracks. Maybe this is just a child's sabe. I wanted to know more. I knew that if we left that before I could get back, any sign of it would be gone. Sorry. I knew that if we left that before I could not get any sign of it would be, oh my God, sorry you guys. I knew that if we left that before I could get back, any sign of it would be gone. I don't know why, but we grew apart shortly after that. Pattern. There are a few other things to do with that also. All right. Now, I'll go back in time to when I was about 11 or 12. I was brought up with going to church every Sunday. After getting confirmed at church, I was able to talk with my mother into the fact that I felt much, much closer to God when I was in the woods. I knew that God was there, and I didn't think that he was in the church that we went to. So, after a lot of convincing, she let me start camping out over the weekend. I would be by myself most of the time. I would stay up late and wander around in the fields and also the woods. I remember that one night I was hanging out by my favorite tree and heard a white-tailed deer came walking by, so close that I touched two of them on the back. When I was camping, where I was camping was an area that had not been hunted in many years. It was going to be a housing track in a few years, so no one ever really went there. I'm the kind of person that has to be able to do it and not just read about it. So now you can get an idea about how close I am to the woods. The next thing, I was in the same area as the first one. There's an area that I've always avoided. I've been camping in different places all around that same area. It is a New York State forest, very big and has many different places. The place is a place that for some reason has not been logged. Everything else has been logged many times. These trees have a diameter of 3 feet or more. Also, it's not that hard to get to it either. Always seems strange to me. I've always been very uncomfortable there. I have gone to scout the place for deer, but never really saw much sign. I also always felt uncomfortable when I was there, like someone was just around the corner. I even had set up camping there once and ended up moving to a new place before night. Now, the start of the latest experiences. This is about 14 years ago when I first moved to Costa Rica. I got the dream job of a lifetime. A friend of mine had bought some jungle land on a mountain and asked me if I would go down to oversee building a couple of houses for him. This was a virgin jungle. There was a somewhat road that was very steep, no electricity, but there was a good well. But everything had to be done by running generators. At first, we had a couple of local people who would stay on the site overnight. One day, they asked me for a large flashlight that I got for them. I didn't think anything of it. I could not speak Spanish very well, so I never really knew what they were telling me. As soon as the two houses were about 3/4 done, I wanted to make the move up there. Still no electricity, so you can't run them all night, so it is very dark. I heard plenty of strange noises in the jungle, but I was not concerned. I had a computer, a cell phone, and a few flashlights. The biggest thing that is around here is a jaguar, or at least that is what I thought. I could hear them regularly, both day and night. I was surprised to hear them in the day, very loud, and I could hear them even over my quad. This is just like yours, a Yamaha Grizzly 450. Mine's a 750. Kidding. The computer and cell phone I would charge during the day when the generators were running. One morning when I was sitting on the deck with my computer doing my job, which was to take a lot of pictures and notes and then send them to the owner with any questions we or he had. This morning I'd been looking at a howler monkey that was close by, so I had my binoculars out already. On the side of the next mountain over, I saw a man walking up a newly built road. I thought, what the hell is he doing out in the sun wearing all black, hood and all? I looked at him through the binoculars, and he was definitely wearing all black. Nothing was making much sense. It was well into the mid-90s. And this guy is head to toe in black. My mind was not taking in the information it was getting. After watching it for an easy 2 minutes, walking up this new road, right when it gets to where it will be going out of my sight, another one jumped from one side of the road to the other. It came busting out of the jungle and right back in on the other side without touching the road. I could still see it plain as day in my head. The second one was gray. I had my binoculars on it when the second one jumped the road. My mind never went to a Sabe encounter. What my thoughts were was it must have been a black panther. But I was never really comfortable with that because of the second one, which was gray. It wasn't until I started watching your show that it hit me. One day you said that your first impression is usually right. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Wow. After realizing that was what I saw, and then a lot of other things from the same building site started to make more sense. Another night I had what at the time I thought was a large cat of some kind run past the house that I was now living in full time. It made a huge growl/scream that ran between my little tiny house and the cliff at the back of the property that was about 15 feet away. By this time I had two big mean dogs that would never let people I knew near the house. I had to keep them chained at all times. They did not even bark and just tried to get inside. But there was no room for them in this little house. I had one other smaller dog that loved to ride on the quad with me, and truthfully, he has the smartest and best guard dog. He was loose and would patrol the property like he was the owner. Anything that moved, he would attack. He killed several possums and chased a big anteater into the big dogs. The big dogs got into a porcupine one night and both ended up at the vet the next day. Anyway, one night my little dog has something that he is all over, barking and yelping. So I let one of the big dogs loose to help him out. When it did that, the shit really hit the fan. We had one street light down by the big house, and all the ruckus was just out of sight of where the light would shine on the road. My little house was up a little higher on the mountain. I was able to get out as far as I could and shine my big flashlight down on all the commotion, and it all just stopped as soon as the light hit it. I would guess it to be 75 yards or so to where this is all going down. As soon as the light hit them, the dogs gave it up and came running back like their asses were on fire. All I could see in the flashlight was a set of very large yellow eyes shining back. They just stared, still, and looked right at me. After it seemed like forever, it took 2 steps and was up on the top of the very steep hill that was the side of the road, and was gone. Now, after looking back at all this, I think that they were just very curious about this new human thing that was living on their mountain. They never really did anything to harm me or my dogs, but they were always around. I'm still in Costa Rica, a different area. I live on the very edge of a very small town, maybe 400 or 500 people, and there is a lot of virgin jungle around here also. The only things so far here are twice I've smelled the awful smell thing. Once at 4 a.m. and the other time is about 6:20 p.m. That time I could see a shadow-like thing walk past my bird bath, kind of shimmery. I think that the awful smell has something to do with them cloaking or doing the predator thing. I've tried to mind speak with them only to know if it... I've tried to mind speak with them only to know if it works. I've asked them to put a dark rock in a perfect white gravel driveway where I live, and they've done it twice. There's much more on this and other topics I could go into, but I am sure you think this is long enough. Thanks, Steve, for all you do. God bless you and Sarah for your whole family. Yes, you can use my name, Mike Kerwin. Mike, appreciate you taking all that time of your life out to donate here to the people. Costa Rica, I think that's the first time. I think that's the first time we've heard from there, possibly. Although we have heard from people all around the world, right? Yeah, your first impression's right. It is. It's very true. You know, quick note on the first impression thing, when I first was aware of it was when I was guiding, early in my guiding career. And at the time, there's antler restrictions on what animals you can harvest. So a bull moose would have to have at least 3 tines on the brow tine, which is in the front of their antlers, or at least 10 points altogether on one side. And for it to be considered a legal point, it has to be 1 inch long. Or elk, it has to have at least 6 tines on one side to be able to legally harvest it. And my rule was, what I realized was, I'd be looking at one that was questionable, staring at it with my binoculars or my spotting scope forever and ever, and I'm like, I think I saw a 6 point. Or even with guiding for mountain sheep, it has to have 8 rings on the horn, which represents 8 years, they need to be 8 years to be legally harvested. Same thing with rams. I'd be counting and counting and counting. We never get in a tight ram, and tight on age, meaning. And I thought I saw that 8th ring, right off the bat. I think I saw that 8th ring, or I thought I would see that 6th point. I thought I saw something hidden in there from long distance. And I'd look and I'd look and I'd look, and then if I thought I saw the same thing 3 times, I saw it. But then once I realized what you have to do, you have to overlook them thoroughly, obviously, and I do. But I'm just saying, it was back then was when I realized that my initial thought was seeming to be correct on that as an example, amongst other things. As I progressed and matured and learned more, became in tune with myself even more from those early days. But that's one of the first times I realized that my first initial thoughts were turning out to be absolutely correct. And only when I started arguing with myself is when I would miss out or screw up. Anyway, sorry about that little spiel, but that just kicked in that memory of your initial thought is correct. It's very, very true. We are our worst enemy when it comes to knowledge or new knowledge or making decisions. As soon as we start arguing with ourselves, you lose. You have to be in tune with yourself and trust your guts, and you have to be able to let yourself go and follow your gut instincts. You have to, if you want to be probably successful, whatever you consider success is. Money is not success to me. Far from it. But I'm just saying, whatever success is to you, you need to let go and trust yourself to become successful in whatever the topic it is. Babbling. She must have juiced up the coffee with something this morning. So, Costa Rica. I wonder how many people you've spoken to around your communities there, or if there is any elders there who have been there for generations. They're going to know. Obviously, they know. They're going to know. And I wonder if you speak openly with anybody around there, your neighbors. Maybe you should. Maybe you have. And maybe you've heard more. And I know that Costa Rica is a popular place for a lot of people to be moving to and buying land and building for North America. I know that for a fact. I wonder how many more people know. I wonder how many more people from Costa Rica have seen. I'm sure we're going to find out. Right? They're watching. They're finding this place. People that know and have an honest curiosity are finding this group of people on their own. Rapidly. Jaguar, I wonder, God, I couldn't imagine the variety of wildlife down there for a North American to witness and watch and learn about. It must be amazing. It would be for me. And right away when you mentioned the jaguar, I wonder what they eat. I wonder what their main source of food is. I have a funny feeling they probably hammer on monkeys. I'll bet you they hammer on monkeys. And I don't know if I haven't a clue if there's ungulates there. Is there some kind of jungle deer there? I imagine there's got to be something. I imagine if there is, then that would probably be what the jaguar hammers on, but I got a funny feeling. Or capybara, are those animals down there? Interesting. Thanks again for your time, man. Don't be shy about sending in more information, all right? We want to hear it, especially from a new area. Especially from a new area. All right, what do we got? Another one. This is titled, Steve, I seen my first Sabe. You poor bastard. Just kidding. Hello again, Steve. Drew here. I've written you before about my scary encounter with the eye shine in my woods as a child. And now I can officially say that I am in the club. Oh, you entered the club as a child. Of course, with the hundreds of hours I spent researching the topic, I felt I've always been in the club. But now there's no denying it. Yeah, just to be clear, you know what my views on the club are? If you accept the facts and the truth, then you know. You don't have to see shit. If you accept it, you're in the club. With that being said, here's my sighting. I'll never forget it. It was 3 weeks ago, Saturday around 3 p.m. on a nice sunny day in mid-October, and the air was chilly. I was traveling along I was traveling along ST.RT.2 along Lake Erie on my way from Toledo, Ohio to Sandusky. I was headed east right around St. R. Tree. It would read street. Okay, that's probably what it is. Street Route 269, literally 2 to 4 miles from my exit at RT 101, and my passenger was an automotive repair client, and we were headed after a certain piece of glass for his Chevy Tahoe. He was your typical gangster type with sagging jeans and had probably never seen a shotgun season sunrise in his life. Well, we'd been on the road for 30 or 40 minutes, and by this time he was passed out and snoring. The scenery was becoming swampy and marshy with small lakes and patches of brush and woods along with the channels of Lake Erie. I was just thinking to myself, this is a pretty rugged wooded area. I wonder if anything is out here. As far as the Sabe, well, that thought quickly came and went, and had completely forgotten about it. When out of the corner of my view, there was a pond bank stretching straight out to my left as the road curved to the right, and I looked over what I saw. I cannot remove from my memories. He was huge. I could easily tell this thing was way bigger than any human on this planet. He had black charcoal hair, and it was thin but long. I could see every part of his skin through the hair, and his skin was brown or light brown for that matter. He wasn't muscular by any means, but huge. Way huge. He was intent on the water's edge just in front of his feet, kind of facing me. He was slightly hunched over, looking down just in front of his feet, and his hands were almost touching the ground. His arms were abnormally long, like freakishly long. He was pretty much standing straight up with a slight hunch in the top portion of his back, and his hands were past his knees, almost touching the ground. I stared for what felt like forever, but as I recounted it to my wife, it was around a solid 2 seconds before the trees in the foreground obstructed my view. My body ran cold. I looked over to my passenger, who was sound asleep, and I almost started to pull off the road when I thought of how ridiculous I would sound to this city-bound, sheltered gangster, and thought of how I'd never hear the end of it if I even tried to explain what I'd just seen. Right then, I flipped on my blinker for my exit and spoke up to wake him, and noticed my left hand was shaking. I couldn't wait to get out of my truck to call my wife. And the one thing that stuck with me in the 2 or 3 weeks since my sighting was when we got back on the highway to head back, is that it was actually quite a distance to the pond where I'd seen him, when it had felt like only seconds had passed until I got off the highway. It took minutes to reach the pond, and I really must have been in some state of shock thinking of what I had just witnessed. And at that point, seeing he was gone, I was cranking my neck backwards to look, and my passenger commented on what the hell I was looking for. He had asked if I'd seen a cop. I thought that was funny coming from a guy of his stature. I even took a few minutes to ask him if he had seen anything strange in his life, or if he believed in Bigfoot. And he said, "Hell no." And I just laughed. I never said much after that. Just wanted to get home so I could try to find the spot on Google Maps. so I could share my story with my wife. But yeah, this is what I saw, and I will be taking it to the grave with me. He was truly magnificent. Steve, thank you for your time, and like I said before, best wishes, and may you and your family have years of good health. Andrew Bales, Holland, Ohio. There you go, Andrew. Welcome to the club. You know, that's an odd description. It's not, well, they're all odd descriptions, but I mean, that's not your, it's not your typical description, but it is quite common. That same description, right? What a gangly, goofy-looking frickin' being this got to be. A gangster with his pants half down. Yeah, people. Tell you what. I'll tell you a quick story, a side note on that topic for me. I ran crews for years, construction, and had my own contracting business for years. And I'll never forget it one time. I needed some new guys, and one of the guys in the crew said, "Oh, I got a guy to come in." All right, send him over the job. And this kid comes up to go to work, just laboring. Comes up the ladder. We're doing a commercial flat roof, sheet metal and waterproofing. And this kid comes up, and he's got his hat, bald hat on straight backwards. And he's got these jeans on that are going halfway down his ass. I don't give a shit if this pisses anybody off or not. I don't care. I looked at the kid and I go, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm here to work." I go, "Well, I'll tell you what. How are you going to work with a bunch of men when you don't even know how to dress yet? You better go run back to mommy, put on your man pants and pull the F up, and come here dressed like a man, ready to work like a man. All right? Not some whacked out pussy. What do you want? Why do you want the crew to look at half your ass? Is there somebody here you got a crush on or something?" I'm not kidding you. That's what I can't help myself. It's like you pull your pants up and man the F up and quit acting like an idiot. Sorry, somebody's got to say it, right? And everybody's kind of looking at me like, holy shit. And you know what? That kid went down the ladder, went home, and he came back with a pair of jeans on, pulled up, work boots, and he ended up working for me for a number of years. There you go. Pulling your pants halfway down your ass. As far as I'm concerned, you're just begging for a kick in the nuts for somebody to tell you to man the F up. Go act like an idiot. There you go. Did I offend somebody? Well, you probably missed the memo of this channel definitely does not cater to anybody who is a member of or supports offended culture. You wear your pants halfway down your ass, you're an idiot. There you go. Who's next? Who's next? What do we got? All right, I don't know what this is about. The title's different. Mark, this is red. Big City Sightings, the title of this email. Hi, Steve. My name is Scott. I live in a suburban city in northern Kentucky, about 10 minutes from downtown Cincinnati. I'm surrounded by subdivisions. There are small patches of wooded areas all throughout the city. Excuse me. The Ohio River is about 5 miles of woods over the hill from me. You can see the river if you go down to the bottom of the next street over. It was late September, early October 2021 when I started noticing strange things. I wake up around 4 a.m. during the weekdays for work. The first thing I do is smoke a cigarette out on my front porch and read the newspaper on my phone. About a week before, I started noticing helicopters flying around the area I live. They were loud and flew very low. I could feel the vibration in my chest, they were so low. I had the same morning routine for 10 years, and I've never heard a helicopter at that time of the morning. This particular morning, I heard an owl hoot. I've never heard or noticed an owl in the 40 years I lived there at my house. The hoot seemed a little off. I remember thinking, well, that was weird. The next morning I'm out there and I hear the owl hoot again, but this time 2 other owls chime in. They all 3 sounded off. This time I remember laughing at it because it sounded so funny. I always thought owls lived alone and they're very territorial. I was kind of thinking That was a little strange too. The deer population in my city is huge. They're almost like dogs. They're everywhere. They come up to our house at night and graze in the grass and are away out of there and are always out there that time of year. I started noticing the deer not being around. I didn't think too much into it. Third night, I'm on my porch and I hear a branch snap and the owls again. The snap was very loud. Out of nowhere, I hear dogs throughout the neighborhood going totally berserk. I'd never heard them act like that before. I kind of felt sorry for the owners because the barking was so loud, and these dogs seemed uncontrollable. Once again, another strange morning. A couple days go by with nothing out of the ordinary except for the helicopters flying low. But I wasn't thinking too much about the previous days. On the fifth morning of this sequence of events, the dogs went nuts again. The owls were back, and I heard what sounded like clicking noises behind my neighbor's house. I never heard that sound before in my life. At work that day, I mentioned the things that had taken place to my coworker. Trying to be funny, he said, "Must be a Bigfoot." We laughed and got on with our day. The next morning is when I realized there's something going on that's not normal. Out of nowhere, I hear this perfect whistle across the street behind the woods of my neighbor's house. My first thought was, who would be whistling at 4 a.m. in the woods? This whistle was pristine and very loud. It was crisp and sounded perfect. I'm not going to lie, it scared the hell out of me. I've always been told not to respond or whistle back when you're in the woods. Oh, interesting. Who told you that? Curious to know who told you that. I started looking into all these strange occurrences, and everything I read and watched pointed to something cryptic. I thought, there's no way. So, of course, my senses are heightened, and I start paying attention to every noise that I hear throughout the next couple of weeks. But the thing is, it all stopped. Nothing. No more owls, tree breaks, dog barking, or helicopters, and the deer back. Absolutely nothing. After a week or two, I stopped thinking about what had happened, and life was back to normal. Fast forward March of this year, 2022. The helicopters are back. The deer disappeared again. The owls were back. The neighbors' dogs were going nuts, and I heard the clicking noises again. This went on for about a week. I started watching YouTube channels, which is how I found you, about Dogman and Bigfoot. The whole time I'm thinking there's no way it's one of these creatures. There's just no way. On the morning of March 23rd, I'm outside in the morning when I hear the clicking and pop noises, and it sounded really close this time. I looked up and across the street, and I see a 8 to 9 foot bipedal creature in my neighbor's front yard staring at me. I froze. I couldn't move a muscle. I could only see the silhouette with the lighting that was there. It was huge. After about 5 seconds, I snapped out of it and stood up just to make sure I wasn't seeing things. I definitely wasn't. The creature looked like it turned its head and walked down the side of the house through a mulch bed and disappeared. The whole thing lasted about 10 seconds. I was floored. I could not believe it. I was second guessing myself, but I know what I saw. Getting ready for work that morning was a blur. I parked my Jeep directly across from where it walked down the driveway. The sun was just coming up. I had to pump myself up just to get to my car. When I finally got out the door, I ran to my vehicle. I looked down to the area where it walked, and in the mulch bed, there were freaking footprints. This blew my mind. Just unbelievable. There was no way I was getting out to take a picture or inspect it closer. When I got to work, I didn't say a word about it since I'd figured my coworker wouldn't believe me anyway. I've told a couple family members and they just laughed it off. I guess that comes with the territory. The footprints stayed visible in the mulch bed for about a week, but washed out when it rained. I'm kicking myself for not getting a closer look at them, but I was afraid if my neighbors saw me down there, they'd think I was nuts. They stayed to their selves, and I didn't know how they'd react if they saw me rooting around in their yard. I wish I would have done it, though. You know what, you could have just went and invited them and say, "Hey, you seen what's in your yard? Come and check this out." And then you're both in it together and it's innocent, right? Instead of looking like a creep. Potentially. I'd never given too much thought about Sasquatch or Dogman. The cryptic world just never crossed my mind. Seeing is believing, and I know what I saw. For all I know, this has been happening every year since I've lived here, and probably for thousands of years before. But the thing is, they are so stealthy that people just never pay attention to the small details going on around them. The scary part is they are so close to the big cities. Not just Pacific Northwest or forests with a ton of acreage. They are literally in our backyards. It doesn't matter where you live. Agreed. These creatures may migrate and pass through my area. The river is close, and there are train tracks down there also. It's a nice pipeline to get from one point to another. I still hear strange things on occasion, but not the amount of activity I was getting at the end of the fall and the beginning of spring. I'm definitely aware now, and my eyes and ears are always open. Thank you, Steve, for doing what you do and for bringing awareness to the subject. People need to be aware that these things are out there and start paying attention to their surroundings. They are everywhere. Take care and God bless, Scotty J. Absolutely agree with you, Scotty. Absolutely agree with you. You're a whole end delivery across the board. You know, there's going to be a lot of people out there, you know, the ones that are still being duped by the Gigantopithecus bullshit narrative. They're not going to allow their brains to accept these facts that are being shared by all of you. The fact that these beings show up in some freaking weird shit-eating places, right? You know, it's funny. I know a lot of people who live rurally and hunt and shit and live on ranches and stuff, and a lot of people say the same thing. I've been hunting my whole life. I've never seen one. We've been living in our ranch right here all our lives. We've never seen one. Who gives a shit? Here's the facts. You know, we had recently, listened to somebody, they had a family ranch for 2 or 3 generations. Boom! All of a sudden, one of these beings shows up on their property. After how many freaking years of living there? Knowing and being on every single trail and square inch of your property, never having a hint, and all of a sudden, whammo, boom, they're there. Where'd they come from? Right? Where'd they come from when they all of a sudden showed up? Migrating for food source. Bullshit. You couldn't threaten me with a gun to accept that at this stage of the game. Not a freaking chance in hell. No, they're not a migrating species looking for food sources. Not a chance. Where'd they come from? Right? So many places where people who are in tune and don't miss shit live without even having to think about this topic, and all of a sudden, bam, in your face, there they are. Just like that out of nowhere, after never even having an inkling or a sign or a neighbor talk about it or nothing. Boom, they're there. Right? So that's something that everybody needs to be aware of. Just because you've never heard anybody talk about it, you've never seen them, doesn't mean shit. Could happen tomorrow. But at least with places like this channel and more, at least you're going to be possibly preloaded with a little bit of knowledge on the topic, so that it potentially doesn't turn your life upside down and ruin everything for you, right? Which it has done to how many people who think it's just a joke. They think it's just a joke. They don't even want to entertain it for a second that this might be fact. And all of a sudden, bam, in their face, they got something screaming at them. Then their hair turns white. They can't speak right. They sell the farm, move to the city, and hide in a basement. Right? Ruined. Instant ruined. Human life ruined because they didn't have any knowledge. Anyway, I could really babble on. I'm slowly getting caught up. Still got a pile of shit to do, and I'm going to go keep chipping away at it. What else? I think that should suffice for today. Should suffice for today. I was thinking earlier today, I cracked open an email that from some individuals who know exactly what those dirty bastards. All right, I'll bite my lip. I'll bite my lip. let's just say, the destruction and the hurt and the pain that a lot of these mainstream faces that you are very familiar with, the shit that they have caused to innocent people is on my plate regularly lately. And I know it's hard to look the other way and not want to seek revenge, I guess you might want to call it, payback. I've always been a supporter of payback. It's just tough for me. It's tough for me to bite my lip and keep my mouth shut at times. Also, I don't want to piss all you guys off. Well, if I do, whatever. But for all you dark sons of bitches out there that have harmed people when it comes to this topic intentionally, soon, you're going to be absolutely famous for what you have done to innocent good people. I'm going to be certain of that. Soon. What do they say? Be afraid. Right? Anyway. Obviously my mind's racing. It's time to go. Got a lot to do. A lot I want to do. And I hope that every one of you out there is seeking freedom of speech, gaining true knowledge. Stop being afraid of each other. Do not fear human beings, period. And all you other people, the people who have shared today and expressed concern for sharing what they saw with others and being laughed at. Again, if there's anybody in particular that you wish you could have spoke to about this topic and you think they're going to laugh, send them one of these videos. Send them this video. Send it to them. But keep talking. Don't stop talking. Share my story at howtohunt.com. That's where it gets shared word for word. And all you very kind people who have responded to my request for help on my tech end, will be getting back to you. Thank you so much for emailing me. I'll be getting back to every single one of you. All right? Okay. Here I go. Tackling another day. I'll be back.